Hello, everybody. I am Clay McNamara, and this is the back to school presentation for the sixth grade language arts and social studies. I'm also teamed with Jill Norris, who is my partner, and she is the math science side of our team, the Paw Prints. So let's go ahead and get started. I know your time is valuable, so I'll try to be quick. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I'm going to apologize if you're already in my advisory and you might have seen some of this presentation already, but most of you haven't. So this is my 25th year of teaching. I've taught PE, leadership, math, health, and of course language arts and social studies. I lived in Brentwood for over 20 years. My wife Jennifer is a first grade teacher at Brentwood Elementary. My daughter Morgan is a junior in college. She'll be attending the University of Tennessee this fall. My son Brendan is a junior at Heritage High School, and I enjoy fishing, woodworking, and gardening in my free time. This is us. Morgan on the left, Jennifer, my wife, in the middle, and of course Brendan on the right. That's us in Palm Desert during July 4th this last year. So that was the most recent picture of us, just so you know what I look like. Okay, so let me just read my teaching philosophy really quickly because some of you may want to know that. So I believe all kids want to do well in school. It's my job to ensure that they have a safe environment that is conducive to learning. I can give them the skills they need, but nurturing a child to be a successful student in person takes a team of adults, takes all of us. Together, the teachers, parents, coaches should always work together and be truthful about what is best for the child. I believe in telling the truth above all else, even when it may not be what some may want to hear. I will give praise when earned. Students will learn that about me. I don't like to give false praise, and I will give criticism when necessary, or I believe a student can give a better effort. My goal is always to help kids become self-reliant, responsible people who strive to do their best in everything they do, because in the end, I want them to be able to say they truly gave it their all in my class with no regrets. So just kind of on that note, I may be, for some of you, I may be their first male teacher. For some, maybe not, but for usually sixth grade, it might be the first time they have a male teacher. Maybe a little bit different. Like I said, I will try to tell them the truth. If they're not doing what they're supposed to be, what they could be doing, or if they could do better, I'll make sure to tell them. But I will always give them praise when it is deserved. Okay, so just real quick, the language arts curriculum. It's broken up into two blocks. There's a writing block, and then there's the reading block. So the writing block is more focused on the writing. We'll do lots of weekly paragraphs, working on grammar. We'll write essays. I'm not going to overload them with essays, but we'll focus on probably one essay per quarter. We'll do a lot of evidence writing, so being able to cite evidence. And the four genres that we'll be writing in every quarter is going to be, this quarter is narrative, so they're going to learn elements of stories, literary elements. Then we'll move on to expository writing and argumentative, which will do a lot of debates and so forth. And then finally, fourth quarter, they will do research writing. And then in the reading block, we'll be reading novels. We'll be reading dramas, which are like plays, short stories. We'll read articles. I like to read Scholastic. Scholastic has some really interesting articles that are high interest for the kids. And I also like to, believe it or not, I like to use movies to sort of teach literary elements. And we'll probably be watching a movie, or by the time you've seen this, we've probably already seen one movie. But it's not for pure entertainment. It's to show them that the same elements that are in novels are also in movies, as far as character development, setting, climax, themes. So we'll talk about themes a lot, or a theme is like a message of the story. So I want them to see how movies and novels are very closely related, and that's why sometimes we will do movie analysis. I find that students remember it much easier when I can refer back to a movie that they've seen, so they can easily make that connection to short stories and novels. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, okay, what curriculum do we use? I know there's sometimes there's some concern out in the community about what curriculum we use. The adopted curriculum we use, Springboard, is they have a workbook, a Springboard. It's a collection of short stories, mostly, and it's kind of like a workbook. So I'll use it. I don't use it exclusively, but I will use it from time to time. It has some very useful elements in there. we also started using something called IXL last year. It's actually a very good program that focuses on skills. I use it mostly kind of for warm ups or weekly. Like they'll have to do a weekly sort of list of activities. Like for instance, I'll assign, let's say, word roots or origins or prefixes and suffixes, and it's a good way for them to get practice. And they have to score about 80% on it to sort of get full credit. But they work through it, so if they miss it, they have an opportunity to go back and get better. And I found it was really helpful last year. It's an online program, but very good. They get instant feedback and explanations of why they miss certain things. So I will tend to use IXL from time to time. I also use Edpuzzle quite a bit. I'll use it in language arts and social studies. Edpuzzle is basically a program where I assign videos. I either make a video or I find a video on YouTube, and then I assign questions. So they have to watch a video. They can't fast forward. They have to watch a video, and then at different intervals of the video, they have to answer questions. So they have to really pay attention. They can always go back and rewatch it. They just can't fast forward. And I'll give them a score, like a daily work score, if they answer all the questions correctly or not. I'm a big Edpuzzle fan. Nearpod is something I also use. Nearpod is really good. It's very interactive. I can embed videos into it. I can embed quizzes into it, or just questions that they have to answer. When we had to go to distance learning a year or so ago, a lot of us had to learn to use Nearpod. I'm glad I did, because it's another way to just sort of keep the students' interests. I do not do exclusively online. I'm a big believer in putting pencil to paper and writing actually on paper. So I do not use everything online, but I will use it from time to time if I think it's a lesson that is useful and purposeful, and if I think the students will learn something from it. The learning management system we use is Canvas. We used that all last year when we were exclusively online. So I will post some things for them on Canvas, but I will caution you: don't look at Canvas as a place to check their grades. It's just a place that I will be posting some assignments from time to time. Okay. Another question some of you may have are, what novels do we read? So the ones that the district approved ones, sometimes I add an extra one at the end of the year, but the ones that we mostly read are Number the Stars. It's a great story. It's a World War II era. Um, it's about a Danish girl who during Denmark during World War II, she has a Jewish friend, and basically it's when the Nazis are basically arresting the Jews, and she goes through the struggle of trying to hide her friend and family from the Nazis. So very very good story. The kids really like that one. Bud Not Buddy. That's another story that we read. It's during the Great Depression. It's about a young orphan who is on a quest to find his father. Very good. It has a lot of elements of music and jazz. I like jazz a lot, so we get to talk about jazz. And so it's a great story. The kids like it. Sometimes I'll read it. A lot of times we will listen to the reader, in class together. And sometimes the CDs are great because there's professional readers who really sort of bring the characters to life, and the kids enjoy that. Another one we read is called Walk Two Moons. It's another sort of a journey about a girl looking for her mother. She goes on a road trip with her grandparents, and they encounter all sorts of issues. Sort of a coming of age book, but the kids enjoy that too. It's a little bit longer than the other two, but again, kids seem to enjoy Walk Two Moons as well. Okay, so those, and if you have any questions about those novels, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, moving on to social studies, we read a book called Ancient Civilization. So the sixth grade curriculum, no matter where you go, throughout the country is usually ancient civilizations. So the things that we will hit in social studies are the early Stone Ages. We'll hit Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Hebrews, Greece, and Rome. So I love teaching social studies. I love the ancient civilizations. I like to bring it, to life as much as I can. Um, the kids enjoy it. They love, especially talking about Egypt. They seem to know a little bit about that. They seem to know a little bit about Greeks. They love Greek mythology and so forth, and they learn a lot about Rome. And the kids seem to really get into some of these, especially those ones. But I really make it a point to make sure they enjoy it. Hopefully, it's fun for them. I don't want history to be boring to them. It's something I really am sort of passionate about. Love doing social studies. So some of the skills covered in social studies, my goal is to teach them to think like a historian, to kind of look at some things from the past and really sort of analyze them, how to make inferences about it. I'll use Edpuzzle a lot. I'll use videos. They have to respond to it. They have to watch and really think about it, analyzing evidence. Also, comparing and contrasting the past to the current events. I really like to talk about those things a lot. Sort of make that connection to the past and to the present. I'm big on maps, so I really like them to understand how to make maps and how to read maps. I also like. Oops, let me get this over here. I also like to for them to learn about how the past and current cultures differ from ours. I like to talk about cultures, and also learn where the origins of our government came from. So, like when we talk about how different societies were structured, or especially like the Greeks and the Romans, how they're very, very closely related to our government structure here in the United States. Grading. So I know a lot of you just want to get to the grading part. So the values are determined by the curriculum and instruction in our district. So the grades are 80% assessment, which is a fancy word for tests, and 20% is like classwork, homework. The thing that's really going to impact students' grades the most is missing assignments. So we got to make sure that they don't have too many missing assignments. If a student fails to meet a deadline, it will most likely result in a 0 in the grade book. So that's the big thing with sixth graders. This homework may be this may be their first introduction to having homework and deadlines. And so a lot of times if they forget to turn things in, they're going to notice it's a 0, and all of a sudden, 4 weeks into the quarter, they have Fs. And so that is real. And a lot of times they won't be able to make those up, especially since they've been kind of forewarned on these things. Now, if more time on an assignment is needed, it will have to be communicated to me ahead of the deadline and have a valid reason. We're trying to teach them to be responsible and to meet deadlines. That's something that they're going to have to definitely do as they progress in their educational careers. Test retakes will be at my discretion. So I don't always do test retakes, but sometimes on big tests. And test retakes are only really given to students who have all their assignments turned in. If a student is missing assignments, they cannot expect to retake any tests. It's not fair to students who have turned in all their work. So if your student does want to retake a test, it can only be done if all their assignments are turned in. And final grades are given quarterly. For those of you who haven't had a student in sixth grade yet, it's not the trimester like in elementary school. It's quarterly. So October break, December break, March break, and when we get out of school in June, those when the report cards will be sent in the mail. It starts back fresh at the beginning of each quarter. Okay, just to talk about grading in middle school compared to elementary school, I think it's just something to highlight for you. So in elementary school, there's it's called a report of progress, I think. They give kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, if you look on the left-hand side there. But if you equate that to the percentages that we use in middle school, it's a little bit different. So if you have a 1 or a 2 report of progress, okay, if you look at that middle row, it's quite a wide range. So a 2, a lot of times people think a 2 is a C. That's not necessarily true. A 2 can be anywhere from a 50 to a roughly a 74%, and that's an F all the way through a C minus. So a lot of times parents are shocked when their student, in elementary school is getting 2s and they think in their head, oh, that's just a C. But then when they get to middle school, they find out that they're getting D's and F's, and that can be kind of shocking. So just sort of keep that in mind. Also, if their student is scoring 3s, a lot of times they think, oh, that's a B. It actually could be anywhere from a C to an A minus. So it just sort of depends. So just try not to think in terms of reported progress. Try to think in percentages now, because that's what we'll use. Look at their percentages, and then also, of course, if they're getting a 4 in elementary school, that's pretty high, and chances are they'll be getting A's. If they're getting their work turned in, obviously, and then they're performing well on tests, there's no reason why they shouldn't get A's. So just kind of keep that in mind, as especially here in the 2 range. Try not to be too shocked, but always talk to the teacher, and we'll tell you where their gaps are or where they need to improve, and give you some ideas on how to help them. Okay. Checking grades online. Grades will always be posted in the Student Connect, known as Q. Grades are updated weekly, and just to reiterate, Canvas is not the place to check grades. Always refer to Q, and parents and students both have access to Q. Now let me just show really quick. Let me see. So to go on there, if you go to the Bristow website, here's the Bristow Middle School website, and you go down, this is where the Q, the student connection, is. So if you click on that, it'll get you in the student portal. So, and then over here, you'll use the username and password. You should be able, and it'll tell the students how to get into it. If you want to use your parent one, you could do that too, but the instructions are right here. I believe the office provides that information for you. So everybody, all parents and all students should have access to the Q, the portal to check the grades. Okay, where is it at? Let me get back to this. Okay, all right. So that's how you check your grades. So real quick, how can I help my child navigate 6th grade? For those of you who've had kids go through, this is not anything new, but for those of you who this is your first child going into middle school, it can be kind of scary. So let me just go over how you can help them. So always encourage them to communicate questions to the teacher first. We can eliminate a lot of emailing back and forth. We want the students to sort of take responsibility for their own learning. So if they're not sure about something, instead of going to you and saying, Mom, Dad, I don't get it, can you email the teacher? Like, we don't want to go that route. It's not that we don't want to hear from you, but we want them to be able to come to us first, because I'd say 99% of the time we can solve it with the students. And so they know exactly what to do, and it keeps you out of having to take time out of your day to email the teacher. It puts the onus on the student. I would also recommend sit down with them weekly to check grades, especially at the beginning. If this is new to them, sit down and look at the grades. Are they missing anything? And if they show you that they're getting A's and B's and they're keeping up with things, then you can sort of taper off and not have to check every week. Maybe check every 2 weeks. And have them show you, have them say, hey, pull up your phone or pull up the computer, pull up your grades. Let's look, so you don't have to sit down and do it. They should know how to do that, because they're going to be doing that in their advisory classes anyway. Another thing you want to do is make sure they're getting enough sleep and that they are organized. So you can ask them once they get their planners, hey, do you have your homework written down? Let me see it. Make sure their backpacks are clean and not just loaded up with a bunch of garbage and things like that. And make sure they have ample supplies, all times, pencil, notebooks, things of that nature. Also, make sure that they have a routine for their schoolwork. They come home, have a snack, get their homework done, or show you their work, whatever it may be, whatever routine works for you. Make sure they have a routine and it's consistent. Students, when they don't have a consistent routine, they tend to struggle more. So make sure it's a consistent routine. Set realistic expectations based on their abilities. No one knows your child better than you. So if you know your child is capable of getting straight A's, then by all means, that should be your expectation. If they struggle, and sometimes B's and sometimes even C's might be their best effort. That's okay too. So, straight A's are not a realistic expectation for all students. But like I said, you know your child best. Set realistic expectations for them. Don't be obsessive with grade checking. We can actually see how many times parents check the grades. So sometimes parents check uh, never at all, and sometimes they check 100 times a week. We don't want you checking that often. Check it. Check it once in a while, but just don't be obsessive about it, because sometimes we found when parents are obsessive about it, it does tend to sort of rub off on the students, and they become a little anxious about grades, and we don't want that either. So just kind of moderation would be fine. Also, one thing that's hard for some parents to hear is I tell them, let them suffer consequences if they're making poor choices about not turning in work, or not writing things down. You can tell them, but if they choose not to do it and they get a bad grade, you remember that's on them. That's not on you. But your job is to help correct their behavior going forward. But one thing that really doesn't help them is if you try to help them too much, then they never really learn how to be self-sufficient. So sometimes getting a bad grade is sometimes the best thing that could happen to them. And if it's going to happen, if you're going to make big mistakes, we always say sixth grade is the time to make those mistakes. Hopefully they learn to fix that during sixth grade, and moving forward in the seventh and eighth grade, they kind of get with the program and they understand how to do that. So because the grades in middle school don't impact their future like they would in high school. So we want to make sure if they're going to make the mistakes, make them in sixth grade, but let them make the mistakes. Sometimes it's okay. Okay. And also, I would recommend have a system of rewards and punishments at home. Like any like anything. If they're doing well, give them rewards, and if they're not, there needs to be some consequences. I think that usually works best. Okay. Um, that is pretty much my presentation. You can always email me at my I'm on the school website. Just shoot me an email. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. And thank you for watching.